Photos. Photography. The act of preserving a certain point in time as a still image. It's a staple in life. Almost every event in someone's life is preserved through photographs. And it's been like this for almost 200 years, which is almost a tenth of all recorded history. Beginning with a blurry black and white photo of a window's view, photography has become the most prevalent art form in human history. And since its creation, it's estimated that there have been 3.5 trillion photos taken. To put that in perspective, that's 480 times the number of humans on this planet. But with so many photos, people have wondered, what's the most famous? It's a question that's been debated for hundreds of years. Time magazine spent years collecting a list of what it believes are the 100 most influential and famous photographs ever taken. Life magazine also made a top 10 list. And so did this magazine. But strangely, one photo has been absent from most of these pictures. A photo I believe to be the most famous photo ever taken. One that truly captures life and happiness. This is the story of Bliss, the most famous photo in human history. To some people, this image is just a photo of a grassy hill on a sunny afternoon. But over time, I believe it's become the most famous photograph in history. It's been seen by billions upon billions of people. But unlike other famous photographs, it's not from a museum. It's not from a famous event. It was from homes, offices, libraries. It's from everywhere. And it goes by the name of Bliss. It was the default wallpaper for the Windows operating system, Windows XP. And this image practically defined a generation. When you think 2000s, you think of the first iPhone, goth clothing, and this. It's truly iconic. But then the question is, why isn't it seen alongside other iconic images? Well, it lies in what Bliss is. It's a default wallpaper. It was a placeholder for wallpaper, which most people would just change to a family photo or something. It was designed to be forgotten, and its only purpose was to be a placeholder. But that's not what it's become. This image was so widespread, seen in almost every computer in the world, it was engraved into people's brains. This was at a time when people were using computers for the first time, and Bliss was their first impression of what would become modern technology. Imagine this, the year is 2001. You hear news of a new kind of technology, one never seen before. It will revolutionize how the world operates. And you finally get your hands on one. You turn it on. This image was the first thing they saw when they turned on a computer for the first time. And that made a big impression on them. For most people who grew up in the 2000s, looking at this image will bring back so many memories of that era. And the Bliss image fits perfectly with Windows XP. The green hill fits great with the start button, the sky complements the blue bar and the header of every open tab, the clouds fit well with Windows' previous aesthetic of Windows 95. It's such a perfect image that lots of people think it's photoshopped. But it's not. This is a real photo of a real place. And the craziest thing is, it was photographed by accident. The photographer didn't realize it at the time, but on January 12, 1996, he would photograph the most famous image in history. And this photograph's name is ʻsᴉʰ罹r. And for most of his life, he was a photographer. But he wasn't always a photographer. He started out as a journalist. Since a very young age, he was writing in the newspaper. At 13 years old, he had a piece he wrote published in his local newspaper. And from then on, he was a journalist. When he was an adult, he wrote professionally for big papers. But as time went on, his passion shifted. When he would write articles, there would be images put alongside them in the paper, and those fascinated him. So he wondered, why can't I take the photos that go with my writing? And from then on, he would be a photographer. And a few years later, a new job opportunity for him arose. A job so good that he moved to the other side of the country, to LA. The job was to be a photographer for the Los Angeles Times. And you may be like, well, that's great, he got a job of his dreams. But it wasn't. As Charles hated working there, he hated the typical workday. Get up, work, sleep, get up, work, sleep. It got tiring. So he made the decision to be a freelance photographer. It was a risky move, but it paid off, with him working with National Geographic. And even though he was a freelance worker, he worked with National Geographic so much that he was basically an employee. For the next 25 years, he would travel all around the world taking photos for the magazine. And one trip led him to a place that would change his career forever. He ended up in a small region in California near Sacramento, a place known as Napa Valley. It's a truly beautiful area. Large grassy hills, blue skies, peaceful nights. And it was a famous wine region. And Charles was sent here on a 3-month photography trip to document the region's famous wine vineyards. And Charles loved the area. He thought the entire region was beautiful. And even though he's visited practically every prominent location in the world, this was one of his favorites. He loved Napa Valley so much that he decided to move there. And this is what led to the birth of Bliss. It's January 12th, 1996. ǝqᴉΡ is taking his weekly hour-long trip to see his girlfriend, and he was driving down an old road in Sonoma County. He looked to his right and sees this. A gorgeous green hillside with a view of a bright blue sky. A truly beautiful sight to behold, so he immediately stopped the car, got out his camera, and took the famous photo. He got back in his car and went back on his trip. But little did he know that the photo would become the face of one company called Microsoft. It's the mid-90s, and the Bliss photo, along with most of ǝqᴉΡ's photos, are made available on a stock photo platform, Westlight. And that company is later purchased by a bigger stock photo platform, Corbis. And the interesting thing is, Corbis is owned by Bill Gates, who is, as you know, the owner of Microsoft. So when Microsoft needed some basic photos for, let's say, the default desktop wallpaper, they would use Corbis to get them. So Microsoft was currently making the next Windows operating system. They're implementing a lot of changes, and one of them is the color scheme. Light green and mid-blue. Colors that can be seen throughout the system, and all they needed was a default desktop background. They needed one that was pleasant to look at, could be seen every day without becoming an eyesore, and fits their color scheme almost perfectly. And they found the perfect image for the job. Microsoft knew that this image had to be the wallpaper. So they made a deal with Charles to hand over the full rights of the image to Microsoft. And it's rumored that Microsoft bought the image for $100,000, which is almost $190,000 in today's money. And it was money well spent, as it became the face of Microsoft. It was in Microsoft commercials, products, and real-life press conferences. It became a truly famous photo. And it would get more and more famous as time went on. Over the next 20 years, the photo got so much more iconic and was cemented in pop culture. And of course, the questions arose. Ever since XP's release in 2001, there have been questions about the image. Where was it photographed? Is it fake? It was taken in Florida. No, Puerto Rico. No, the desert. It's fake. No, it's real. No, it's way too saturated to be real. Well, how would you even fake it? Even Microsoft didn't know where it was taken or even if it was real. So they contacted ǝqᴶΡ, and he shared the location and confirmed that the photo sold to them was completely unaltered. And that just adds to the beauty of this image. Bliss looks like such an otherworldly place. Everything looks so perfect. The perfect blue sky, the smooth light green hill, the soft clouds. It's so fascinating that this is a real place. Completely real and unaltered. It's beautiful. And it's still around today. It may not be the same. The hill has since become a wine vineyard, and it's a darker shade of green now. But the landmarks are still there. The hill, the clouds, the sky. It's still here, and it will continue to be. Even if the real place goes away, this image will remain. I truly can't stress enough the impact this image has had on pop culture. It forever changed what nature photography was. It was the face of the internet's beginning. It started internet meme culture. It's the star of 2000s nostalgia. This image emits so many emotions. Peace, happiness, beauty, joy, and most prominently, bliss.